What's up? Welcome back to another episode. Currently sitting around 5 weeks out from the UFE World PRO Championships. So checked in with coach, and that was yesterday that we checked in. And in terms of what the next little bit is going to look like, we have doubled up on cardio, 2 sessions a day, which is fine. We're going to do it. Things are moving nicely at the moment, which is good. I think we were about 127.3 or something like that this morning, which isn't the lowest it's been so far. I think I had a weigh-in that was like 125 something. But yeah, had a massage yesterday, working through this shoulder thing that I've been, that's been kind of nagging me. So I had that yesterday, and so yeah, increased the cardio, and so far things are like, I'm happy with the way that things are looking. I did train glutes this morning, but this is kind of what the physique is looking like. Here, delts are starting to look nice and full. So yeah, lats are still staying nice and wide. So Paul, he essentially said goal is getting me down to being below the 120 mark. My stage weight's about 116. So get me down to 120 ASAP with the double cardio sessions per day. I'm certain that we're going to get there pretty quickly. I do want to open up and just kind of talk about my lack of sharing on social media. So last time I was really good at like rocking out the cardio conversations, like really being very super vocal on social media throughout the process. This time, totally different story. I want to really just admit that the reason why I've been trying, because this has been so much more intense for me, I've been trying to run a lot of the parts of my business while doing my cardio sessions. So responding to emails, responding to clients, doing training plans, just because it's more cardio, my workouts are longer, volume is longer, and my son's also in preschool, and what's happening with that is it's a cooperative preschool, which means I have to volunteer, which essentially takes up some hours throughout the week. So I've really just been trying my best to keep things afloat while maintaining how much training volume that there is required. Really just had my head down, brain focused. That's really what it's been going on for me. I've just been like, keep your eyes on the prize, keep your head focused, just like keep on grinding forward. Feel very confident that I'm going to be exactly where I need to be in 5 weeks' time. It is going to be a fuck ton of work to do it, and I'm totally willing to go through that process and totally willing to just be so focused on what it is that I need to accomplish. But I know that that's going to require that I do not have distractions. So sometimes on social media, I have this guilty pleasure of just flipping through. Social media can be tons of fun, but it can also be distracting. So I have made the decision that over the next few weeks, I'm just going to be like super focused, keep on doing what I've been doing up until this point, because it's been feeling so good for me. But I think that's really it in terms of updates. My macros are still the same, so there's nothing to update you guys about in that department. So really, I'm just hoping that between this week and next week, I see some pretty good changes with the physique, and that my coaches and stuff are happy with it. And yeah, I think that's all that's on my brain this weekend, or that's all that's on my brain at the moment. Now, the next segment of today's clip is going to be the analysis of my 23andMe test. So I did this, sent it away, I forget when, but maybe a couple months ago or something like that. So I sent it away just to kind of see what's going on gene-wise, and what's going on with my DNA, and just kind of get some more insight about myself as an individual. The more that I know about myself, the more that I can make sure that the next segment, the part of trying to get pregnant and the part of like trying to have healthy hormones and all that kind of stuff, just making sure that all of those parts are like optimal. So with the assistance of Nutrition Dynamic and Vince Pitstick, he's connected me with somebody who's going to be analyzing everything. So she has sent me over a PDF with the analysis, but we're going to hop onto a call momentarily, and she's going to go through all of the items of that with me. So I wanted to share that with you guys in case you guys find it to be insightful. This is really helpful information in terms of like identifying what it is that you may need in terms of supplementation and what it is that you may need in terms of your nutrition strategy long term. And yeah, we just wanted to see if there was anything that I was going to be passing on to children in the future. It's kind of cool to know what's going on gene-wise. So that is it for right now, guys. We will show you this call and let's get into it.
All right, did you get the reports that I sent?
I did, yeah. I printed them off and I have them in front of me here.
Perfect. Okay. So there's two reports. The one report that's longer, that's a PDF, that's like 20 pages. That is the report that I get from the tool, like the strategy tool that I use to process your raw data. As you may have noticed, it is a lot of overwhelming, intricate information. It's not really intended for consumers, but I just give it to you because essentially, for two reasons. Essentially, I had to pay for that, so therefore you had to pay for that. So I figure you might as well get to keep it. And then the other piece is I do like on pages 1 and 2 how it has those nice charts of all of your, just kind of like a quick run through of all your genes. And of course, those don't change. So I feel like that's helpful to have because as more research comes out, you have that information there. So anyway, so that's all that's for. I'm not going to go through like biochemical, pathways with you, but I just wanted you to have it so that you have the chart of the genes and you can kind of hold on to that, which genes of yours are affected and which are not.
Awesome.
Yeah, what I'm mostly going to talk from is that the little homemade Word document that I sent that just kind of has like a rundown of the different genes, and I try to give you a little bit more condensed practical information in response to each of those genetic variations, and then at the end I'll kind of put it all together for you and give you kind of like a synopsis.
Sounds good.
So just a quick few like background things before I jump in. So you may know all this, so forgive me if I'm repeating things but basically you'll see how there's like a gene name, which is just letters and numbers, and then like a plus, minus, a minus, minus, or a plus, plus. So basically that's just indicating if you have a minus, minus, it means you have kind of the normal or the typical, genetic pattern. If you have a plus, minus, it means you got a variation from your mom or your dad, and then you have one of the normal patterns from your mom or your dad. And then if you have plus, plus, it means you got, the variation from both your mom and your dad. So you can have any of those patterns, and I'll explain kind of how that affects the function of these genes or the enzymes that they code for. But just know that. And then the other thing I like to explain or remind people is, these genes are not your destiny. So it's not like if something has a variation, like it's the end of the world, how I look at it is it's an opportunity to just personalize your nutrition that much more. And so we know where there's a variation that we have to sometimes work a little harder or sometimes just change what we're doing in order to get, an optimal result and kind of, from a preventative or a wellness side, kind of preserve our health. So those are kind of just a few like little disclaimers. I also don't recommend as I'm going through this, I don't want you to hear it as, oh, you have this gene, so we're going to take this, and then you have this gene, so you're going to take that. It's really more of like an intricate, interwoven pattern. So I'm going to explain each one to you, but then kind of at the end, I'll give you more of like a summary of like, here are the patterns and the themes that I see, and how do we, and I'll communicate that to Vince and kind of some suggestions on supplements. Does that make sense?
Yep, that sounds good.
Okay, cool. So on that Word document, I'll just kind of go through these with you. So the first one is FLC 19A1, and this has to do with folate transport. So not just necessarily like how much folate you need, but how well it's moved through the body. So you have plus or minus, so you have a little bit of a decreased function of that enzyme that gene codes for. So folic acid is definitely something to avoid. And I mean, I'm sure you know this if you're, you'll know some of this if you're in coaching, but you know, folic acid is synthetic, whereas folate is a natural form of the B vitamin. Folic acid is mostly only going to be in like supplements that aren't, you know, like a physician grade supplement. I have noticed some like fitness supplements, like some brands do still have folic acid in theirs and some of them don't, so just be careful with those. Also like fortified, like pasta, definitely cold breakfast cereal, those type of foods always have folic acid added to them. So just be careful of that. Alcohol reduces the activity of this enzyme, so it doesn't mean you can't ever have a drink. It just means, you know, obviously if you're, I'm sure you're not, but if someone were drinking like, you know, 3, 4, 5 nights a week, that's going to definitely affect their need for folate. So that's important. And vitamin D is also really important. It's kind of like a cofactor for this gene, or the enzyme that this gene codes for. And so vitamin D levels are important there, just to kind of support that metabolism. One thing from like your pattern where you might need a little bit of extra support depending on, you know, what you're eating. Does that all make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Okay. MTHFR, this is the one, of course, that most people know about or have heard about. And it has to do with methylation, and again, folate is involved with that process. So this is kind of like you're seeing already, here's a second one that has to do with folate that, you know, can contribute to like a higher requirement or need for that. And you were plus minus for both of them. There's 2 MTHFR genes, and you were plus minus for both of them. So again, avoiding folic acid, and then in some cases, I would say in most cases, people need either like a multi that contains folate, or you'll have to add it on to what you're already doing. You'll probably need more on like the upper end of the folate requirement, like 800 micrograms at least per day, just to make sure that you're getting that upper end amount, since you have a few of those gene variations. Antioxidant gene, and you were negative for that, so that's good. GSTP1 is another detox gene, and you were negative for that. If you're wondering, I include the ones that are negative simply because it helps when we kind of, at the end, kind of take a step back. I can kind of say, okay, here are areas of weakness, but then at the same time, here are the areas of strength that we don't have to kind of worry about. So it kind of helps to put it all in perspective, I think. Mm-hmm,
for sure.
Yeah, so the next one, NOS3, this one has to do with nitric oxide production. This one isn't like a huge, it can be a health issue for someone with like a high cardiovascular disease risk, but it does also play a role in like the performance sector. So like from an athletic performance area, sometimes people can improve like aerobic performance if they have this, you know, genetic propensity for less nitric oxide. Occasionally I'll have people who will do like a micronutrient panel and their arginine is low, or if they're like vegetarian and they're maybe not getting enough protein. So sometimes those things can play into it, but folate is also really important for this cycle to happen. And so sometimes just by improving methylation, you'll see an improvement in like athletic performance because you can get more blood to your muscles and to your organs. So that's really the point of that one. Let's see what else. The next one, this is a big one, and it's going to be important for you. COMT, there are 2 of those genes as well, and you were plus minus for both of them. This one has to do with detoxifying estrogen from the body, and estrogen can be, you know, estrogen that our body makes, or it can also be like things that look like estrogen, like plastic and fragrances and pesticides and things like that. Also, it detoxifies neurotransmitters, so like adrenaline and epinephrine, things that are important when we need them, but then we don't want them to hang out and cause like anxiety. And this one's tricky because it can kind of go either way. You can have like a fast COMT metabolism where you just burn through adrenaline and epinephrine, or it can be sluggish where it can contribute to kind of like lack of focus or depression, things like that, or just tiredness. So things that are from a nutritional standpoint important would be B12 and magnesium. And then the other really important thing with this one is like lifestyle. So just kind of knowing where you stand from a personality standpoint in terms of like, are you more prone to anxiety or are you more prone to like kind of lack of focus and depression? Moderating like caffeine and stress in your environment, stress management, things like sleep, meditation, prayer, whatever kind of spiritual component you have. All of those things can be overly, can be stimulatory or help to kind of balance this genetic profile. So in general, those are kind of some things that can help. And then have you run like your hormones yet or any of your like vitamins or minerals?
The last time I ran them was in June.
Okay.
And when I ran it, I had the Mirena IUD in, so I had no hormones, no luteinizing hormone. Vitamin D was super low. Vitamin B was super low. And then I started working with Vince shortly after that, and I didn't remove the IUD until August, though, so we're kind of just coming off of getting things sorted out with that, yeah.
Gotcha. Okay. All right, so you haven't rechecked your hormones since you come off that?
No, my show's in 5.5 weeks, so I don't really think it makes sense to do another check of my hormones till...
You have to wait. You have to wait like 3 months, 2 or 3 months.
Yeah, so that was kind of our plan after show, then maybe to run another profile and see how things are looking at that point.
Perfect. Okay, so you're preparing for a show right now?
Yeah.
Okay, got it. Okay, so I'll focus on that then too. Okay, so that NOS3 then could be important for that. Okay, and then, so then when you look at basically like if your estrogen, your estrogen I'm guessing will be low then if you're preparing for show. So you probably won't need that piece of this, but definitely from like a mood, focus, stress standpoint, some of those nutrients could be really important.
Sounds good.
BCO1, there are 5 of these genes, and you're a plus or minus for all of them. So this could be important if and when you decide to run like a full micronutrient panel, which I think Vince may suggest after you're done with show, just to kind of see where you stand, because we have a test that we can run that just does everything, like all your vitamins, all your minerals, all your amino acids, and this gene has to do with your body's reduced ability to convert beta-carotene to active vitamin A. You can get active vitamin A from animal products, but sometimes without that additional ability to convert beta-carotene, which is like your plant vitamin A, like from carrots and squash and things that are orange, sometimes people can have deficiencies, and it is a fat-soluble nutrient, so especially if you're preparing for show right now and maybe cutting a little bit or not, doing a lot of fat, that could be an issue. So sometimes what I'll do is, if I know you're deficient, then I'll do like cod liver oil instead of a regular fish oil because it has more vitamin A and D. So that's kind of like a little trick. But again, it's not the end of the world. A lot of people have this variation. It's just more of like, for example, if you were like vegan, I would be really concerned, like make sure that we're getting in some sort of vitamin A supplement, at least from a multivitamin, to make sure that we're not running low on that, because that's really important for, immunity and your bones and your eyes and your brain and all that. Important. This one has kind of limited research, but basically they tend to see that people with this genetic pattern have lower B12 or just tend to have a higher need and need a little bit more. And also an increased need for probiotics to support better diversity of their good bacteria in the gut. Are you doing a probiotic right now?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. All right, cool. The next one, NQ01, this has to do with like antioxidant recycling. So basically it's just saying that we have to make sure your methylation pathways and your detox pathways are working. Your detox pathways look pretty good, honestly. You just had that COM2 one, but the other ones look really great from a genetic standpoint. So as long as your lifestyle is, supporting those, you shouldn't have as much of an issue with this. but, basically this one has to do with oxidative stress. So, definitely preparing for show is going to be a little bit increased oxidative stress, and kind of half the battle, as you know, is like keeping that down, so that you're, getting in the shape that you want, but without, like aging your body and eating it up too bad. So this one will come into play more later, as you're kind of working more on these methylation issues, just avoiding like heavy antioxidant supplements until your methylation is improved. PEMT has to do with choline, and so does the next one, the FADS. So you have 3 of those that have to do with choline deficiency. This one's really important when you're working on methylation, and it's kind of like a newer nutrient in terms of like my understanding of it, and I think just in general as a field, understanding the importance of choline. It's not really part of the methylation cycle, but it heavily plays into your body's availability to draw from that your folate reserve. And so more and more I am recommending choline supplementation, even just for like a few months, to kind of get your body back on track. It's also really important for nerve, like if you have any history of like anxiety, headache, cognitive issues, memory issues, fertility issues, like anything like that, choline is also really important. It also helps support the gut, like the actual lining of your gut tissue, your intestinal tissue, and so it can be important if we think that there might be gut issues as well. So choline is one that you can sometimes get from like a multivitamin, otherwise sometimes we have to take it separately. But just for a few months should be good to kind of get you back where you need to be. You can get choline from food, like eggs and fish and other animal products, but you have to eat like 4 eggs a day to get the choline that you need. So sometimes, and there's a little bit in plant foods, but so sometimes it's actually a more common deficiency that I've been seeing in women, especially when there's that history of any sort of like cognitive or neurological issues, anything like that. One that was plus or minus, which isn't bad. There's 3 of them. So it does reduce your body's ability a little bit to convert vitamin D from the sun into usable vitamin D in your skin. I usually recommend people take vitamin D anyway, and have your levels checked once or twice a year, just to make sure you're at a good, you're over 50 or higher for that. 50 to 80 is a good level to be at for vitamin D. And then the last one, ApoE, there are 2 genes for that, and you were plus for one and plus minus for the other. There can be an increased risk of high cholesterol with this gene, and so when people have this, it doesn't mean you're going to have high cholesterol, but if you have been someone who has had it in the past, there is a piece of it that is this. It's not your destiny, but it is part of it. So again, eating like an anti-inflammatory, kind of like a Mediterranean diet, is typically going to support that the best. But don't let your doctor go crazy if you're otherwise like in really good shape and health, and your numbers tend to run a little high. Just make sure they know how to do additional testing to like look deeper at it, because sometimes sometimes it's not as much of an issue as they make it out to be. And if we know that there's some genetics behind it, then that can be a little bit misleading, if they don't know what they're looking for. Does that all make sense?
Yeah, I would say so.
Okay. I know that's like a ton of information all at once. Do you have any questions on any of this before I kind of give you like a summary?
I don't think so. I'll get you to go through the summary, and then if there's anything that I have questions about from there, because I feel like, kind of that was good going through each of the specifics in relation to it, but it's nice too to just have like, what does it mean for final wrap up moving forward?
Yeah. So basically what I'm seeing for kind of like a theme for you is that folate and B12 are definitely themes for you. So those came up at least 3 times. So to me, those are areas where definitely you can use some support. And those methylation processes are really important for cognitive and neurological health, for cardiovascular health, and just like mood regulation, and also just for support during this time where your body's undergoing a lot of intense stress. That methylation is really important so that your body isn't like aging on the inside, you know, while you're going through this period of high stress. So that's going to be really important. B12 is important for, again, same thing, kind of like mood, energy, and then also like just energy production, just like making energy for your body. And then I think magnesium might be important, and also choline. So those are kind of your main things. You really didn't have like a ton in here that was like, oh boy, this is going to be, you know, kind of crazy. The one thing that's a little bit of a wild card, like I told you, is that COMT gene. So depending on what your hormones look like, that could be an area where you might need some additional support, because that was a kind of a double whammy for you. But the other things really are purely more nutritional, like the folate, the Bs, and the choline is kind of like a B vitamin too. And then maybe some magnesium. So that's kind of what I'm seeing for you in terms of like patterns. Does that make sense, or does that generate any other questions?
Yeah, like I would say that seems very much like in line with kind of the results from my most recent blood work and stuff, seeing that was a trend. Now I'm curious in relation to the stuff that you mentioned about pregnancy-related stuff, just because we do have one child, but we're planning to, after this show, try for the second child. So I'm just curious about the two that you mentioned there, about the choline. Is that something that you would suggest, like, getting a start on it as soon as possible versus waiting to the period at that point?
Yeah. I would definitely do it right away, and then all during pregnancy.
Would you suggest pretty much all of them throughout pregnancy then, the folate, the B12, and the choline?
Oh, yeah. Yes, definitely. And if you get like a good, I don't remember what Vince uses. He might use, I don't remember, I think Metagenics has a prenatal. I think it's called like Sun Prenatal, so he might recommend that. There are a few good prenatals out there that are like, I use like Seeking Health is a good brand. Pure Encapsulations has a pretty hefty multi that you can use like a prenatal. It's not technically a prenatal, but you can use it like one. And it's going to have really high amounts of folate, which is very, very important for babies' neurological development. And then choline is very important for babies' neurological and brain development. Perfect. And most prenatals will have choline nowadays if they're like a decent, brand, but those are some brands if you want to look around. And then, all of those are going to be super important. But choline is really important in advance, and then also while you're pregnant, because it's literally supporting the like knitting together of baby's brain and nervous system.
Okay.
So yeah, that's a really good question.
Okay, excellent. That sounds good. Yeah. Now, in terms of the gut stuff, so Vince has kind of been working through that with me. Seems to be that right now it's not necessarily, right now it seems to be like managed and at bay. Is there anything from like the genes that you're seeing come up that like could be contributing to the issues that I have in relation to my gut? Or is that more so maybe related to something else versus something genetically?
Yeah, good question. It definitely can be related. So choline is like, it kind of like coats the intestinal lining. And it's hard to explain, but I guess that's the best way I can explain it, is that it kind of coats the intestinal lining. So it's really important for just the health of this gut tissue. So I use choline more, not in the beginning phases, like if someone has like bacteria or yeast overgrowth, I don't use choline then, but I'll use it as more of like a nourishing supplement after we've gotten through, like once we've added back probiotics and kind of like to help support the gut tissue. So that's very important for gut. And without it, it can probably contribute or worsen gut issues. And then the other thing would be your B12 affects your digestion and your stomach acid levels. So if you're deficient in B12 or just low in B12, there's kind of a unique relationship with B12. It's kind of like a chicken or an egg scenario. If you have low stomach acid, then you'll have trouble making B12. If you have trouble making B12, you'll have low stomach acid.
Gotcha.
So that's definitely an important thing for digestion. And if you have low stomach acid, you're going to have trouble, number one, keeping out bad guys like bad bacteria or yeast. And you're also going to have trouble breaking down minerals, like especially iron, and also protein, because protein digestion occurs mainly in the stomach.
Gotcha.
So from a performance and from just a general health standpoint, that can cause problems. And then the COMT gene that I talked about, that I think is a pretty important one for you, but we won't have all the pieces of the puzzle until after you recheck your hormones. But the COMT, it processes neurotransmitters, and neurotransmitters are made in the gut. So if you don't have, so if your COMT gene is kind of messed up or gunked up or kind of dirty, and then on top of that you're not clearing neurotransmitters or you're not making enough, then it can contribute even more to like that COMT gene not working very well. Does that make sense? So it's kind of like another vicious cycle.
Gotcha. Now, the other thing that we were kind of curious about going through this, and I'll follow up again with Vince, so the thing that we were curious about when we originally were talking about the 23andMe test was that I have, even before I've like went through the process of dieting, I've always had like on and off periods for like all of my life where they like haven't been consistent. There was a period where I didn't have a period, or there was like a segment where I didn't have a period for like 5 years, and then and that wasn't even like competing related. Like this was all pre-competing related. So we weren't sure, would that be something that's like, I don't know, genetically set, like, do you know what I mean?